Dobar večer, good evening. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all tonight at an event where we can host Amnesty researcher Budour Hassan as a pre-event to the festival Grounded that starts on Thursday, also with Budour as one of the speakers at the events. And we wouldn't be here, of course, without Amnesty, its research, and the Slovenian office who invited Budour to come. With her, on her right, Wafa Kanan. She has lived in Slovenia now for almost 4 years, I think. She's from Gaza, a pharmacist, and also a humanitarian worker who worked for medical aid for Palestinians for many years. She's in Slovenia with her family, but a big part of her family, her mother and her brothers with their families are still in Gaza, surviving and resisting genocide that is taking place. And next to her, Maja Ladić, a researcher at Peace Institute in Ljubljana, and she also was part of a project that was looking at how in Slovenia we have somehow established a system or not established it of what's called additional safe routes or safe routes. And this is also something we will be touching on or talking today. As we're looking at Slovenia, where we very much like to talk about love, that is inside the name of Slovenia, yet it seems that love and solidarity is missing in the last 2 years when we're looking at what's happening in Gaza. And although Slovenian government for sure is doing and trying things, we believe that it's more that can be done and it's more that must be done. And I will perhaps start by just giving the microphone as soon as possible also to the guests and Budour. And I would like to start with something that I think is, in a way, if we're talking about evacuations, if we're talking about safe routes, family reunification, student visas, the fact is people are going out of Gaza, and the experience so far for Palestinians has been that the right of return for Palestinian refugees is not being respected by Israel since 1948. And many people know that if they leave Palestine, they will never be allowed by Israel to return. And this also seems to be somehow a thought and a worry that with mass evacuations, it could actually be something that Israel wants, to cleanse, to ethnically cleanse Palestine of Palestinians. So I'm wondering, coming from Nazareth, coming from Ramallah, and working with Amnesty International, being an international lawyer, researching human rights, it's the respect for human rights and the violations that are happening in Palestine. How do you look at these topics? This is not... How do you see what is happening now, and what the reaction of the international community in a way should be, since we see that people are dying, also people who are being evacuated, for example, in the last days to Italy, because of the effects of malnutrition. One of the evacuees actually died later on in Italy. So how can we approach this? What is to be done if we want to do something, and it's clear that something must be done?
Maybe I would just start by acknowledging the fact that sitting next to me is Wafa. Wafa is from Gaza. I live in Ramallah. Probably the only place where we could meet would be Slovenia, because I, as a Palestinian from living in Ramallah, even though Gaza is, what, an hour drive away from where I am, less, I can't even visit Gaza because of Israel prevents me from doing so. And we're part of the same place. Wafa can't come to Ramallah or to Jerusalem because she would need a permit to do that. And this fragmentation of the same people, the same place, has been going on for decades. And I think the moment we met, we recognized that we have people in connection, that we have common connections. I obviously know her mother. I read what her mother says, and to me it's kind of really painful to start from this. I think here lies always the heart of our story as a people, as Palestinians, that for 78 years almost now, we have been splintered and fragmented and denied this very human, intimate possibility of just knowing each other, of being with each other, of being with our families, like even the most basic thing, being one family. We had every people, when they want to decide whether to make a family, when they want to fall in love, they just decide that based on taste, based on feeling. For us, there are so many things that go in there, the color of the ID, the place where this person lives, whether you first think, okay, so would Israel allow us to live together? Would geography, the cruelty of our fragmented geography that has sentenced us to this life of not knowing, of uncertainty. And this has been way before the genocide, and the genocide has made it even more cruel because before the genocide, we could at least campaign for some people who are sick with chronic illnesses, with terminal illnesses, with injuries, to leave Gaza to receive treatment in the West Bank or in Jerusalem. Now it's not even a possibility. Since October 2023, Israel has refused, not only has it refused to allow people to receive treatment inside the Ramallah or Jerusalem, it has expelled cancer patients who were receiving treatment when the 7th of October happened, who were staying in Jerusalem or in Ramallah legally. Many were expelled back to Gaza after being detained, after being tortured. So I think this is, the question is, we know that one of the objectives of Israel's military campaign is to make Gaza uninhabitable, and also to ethnically cleanse Gaza. So one of the objectives, basically, genocide can also be read as a means towards an end, which is not a new plan. There have been plans to ethnically cleanse Gaza for a while now. Since basically the 1950s, we've been hearing about this talk. And the question is, so how do we deal with it? And here nobody would talk about, and just to also clear, and this is something Wafa and I were talking about, even when things were horrific, after the ceasefire, if you ask the vast majority of Palestinians in Gaza, including those whose homes were turned into rubble, including those whose homes were totally destroyed, people came back, set up tents on the ruins of their destroyed homes, and stayed there. And said, and people said, we will not allow Trump's proposal back then to succeed. People were content, and so many said, yes, it's tough, but we love Gaza and we want to stay. People love Gaza despite everything. People wanted to stay. People tried to create life out of lifelessness. People tried to negate death by living, by staying, by trying to challenge everything else and defy everything, not because they're genetically more defiant, not because they're superhuman, just because they're, as everyone else, they're fragile and vulnerable and tired, but they also love this place. So they tried to stay. The thing is, the return of the re-escalation of the genocide, the end of the ceasefire on the 18th of March, has basically shattered people's hopes. People said, we tried everything we could to stay, but we wouldn't be allowed to live. So the choice is, how do we act before that? Yes, we don't want to facilitate ethnic cleansing, but also nobody is calling for mass evacuations. What we are here calling for is certain criteria and responsibilities, especially for countries that have been so vocal in support of Palestinian rights, like Slovenia has been, and in opposing Israel's genocide. There are criteria, for example, people with family connections, permanent residents or residents of in Slovenia who have family back home in Gaza, who have mothers, fathers, brothers and sisters. And we're talking about small categories, people who would be eligible to study, and these are people, and obviously we shouldn't need to say that, because this be a right extended to refugees, to people to seek safety. But these are people, everyone in Gaza you ask, they say, we are happy to give back to the community that hosts us. And also, we're talking about medical evacuations, we're talking about children, including amputees, including children with cancer and their families, including people who have gone through the worst of the worst, really, to find some hope, some safety. And yes, the issue of whether these people would be allowed to return, absolutely countries have been vocal in saying we will not accept the people to be prevented. Once hopefully Rafah is open, people who want to return should be allowed to go back. And this is something that we always say, that respecting, giving asylum based on certain criteria, but also acknowledging and respecting the right of people to return home. Is this easy? No, of course, because we know that there is this aim of not allowing people back. But also, sometimes you have two values clashing. You have the big picture, but you have the individual cases. And this appears as if it is a clash, but it's not. There must be this priority to save life. And to save life, especially when there is the possibility. We're not asking for inventing new policies. We're simply asking that those who have first-degree relatives in Gaza, those who are residing in Slovenia, that they should be allowed to reunite with their families, to save, basically, because no one is talking about luxuries here. We're talking about bare, naked survival. Those who can be medically evacuated, who can find a new life in Slovenia, just as Slovenia has been a moral leader when it comes to taking the right decisions to hold Israel accountable. Arms embargo, and not just doing performative recognition steps, something more. And as difficult as this can be, the issue of working more, being empathetic, because it's all lies in our capacity, shared capacity to be empathetic. When I meet people who came here seeking refuge during the Bosnian genocide, I feel like, yes, there have people who have found new life here. And we would love that Slovenia would extend this license to start a new life for Palestinians in Gaza too.
Thank you, Budour. Wafa, would you like to share with us, perhaps, as Budour mentioned, for you, how does it feel? Or what is it that you feel must be said, can or can't be understood by people living in Slovenia, by people who don't have relatives, who don't have family, friends in Gaza? What does it mean to have a chance to ask and to hope that people you care about can be brought to safety or can be ensured safety and what we consider home in a way?
It's like that you ask someone, you have two options, either to live or not to live. This is it, yeah, it's like this. And I mean, having a family there, it's too painful. It's something that you really cannot describe in words, because for almost 20 months now, we are just, every single minute, we are afraid to receive the news that we lost one of our family members. For me, for example, my husband lost his father by an Israeli sniper who killed him. He was an old man, yeah. I lost so many friends, I lost so many neighbors, and of course, so losing a family member, it could happen while I'm talking to you now. I have no guarantee for this. So if I have the option that I feel that I have this chance, of course I will use it and I will push to do it. I cannot just be silent and watch and wait. Okay, yeah, they may die tomorrow and they will be killed maybe the day after tomorrow. I cannot watch this. I cannot be silent and not doing anything if I know that my little nephews and nieces, they are starved. Yesterday I was in a call, it's an everyday of course, I was in a call with my sister-in-law and they ran out of flour, moka in Slovenian. And then I asked her, so what did you eat? And they eat the cans that they have, the cans without rice and without also bread. And this is not enough. We are talking about little children. For example, those nieces and nephews, they are 10 years old and 12 years old. I have another brother who has a little baby, 8 months old. Last month, they ran out of the milk formula. I don't know what milk formula will do to the Israel security. What can do in the world not allowing the baby formula to go in? Yeah, into Gaza. The diapers. My sister-in-law, she sent to me a photo for my little nephew because they run out of the diaper. And using the other way, it's very hard. And Gaza during the summer, it's too hot. We are a very hot place, and the limited access to water. This is an issue. There is a very big issue of the limited access to hygiene material. I mean, the soap, the shampoo, and so on. And because of that, now there is regarding the health issue, we have a lot of infectious diseases, skin diseases, and GIT diseases, and so on. And we have, in the same time, a limited access to the medication and to the health care. So how we will solve this? Of course, I cannot stop thinking that I have the chance to do something and I will not do anything. I cannot understand that people, they say, no, you cannot do anything. What you will do? I can do, I will try to do. And I see that I can do something, and the countries, the government, they can do something in the world. They should, of course, the first priority is to stop this. They should push Israel to stop. This is a must, yeah. But also I have the right, like any other human being, that I need my family to survive. I don't want to lose them. Why I should live in this feeling all the time that I will lose them? And how I will live my life that I feel that I was able to do something and I didn't do. Or there was a chance that they can survive and it didn't happen just because the answer was no, we cannot evacuate them. And because Budour mentioned this has literally happened. When the ceasefire was announced, many people, they really returned to rubbles, almost to rubbles, including my family. And I remember my brother, he lost his apartment, but he was in my cousin's apartment, that it is half damaged. It's already bombed, the building. And it's half bombed and half is still standing. And he decided that he will stay in this standing part. And I was talking to him that it's quite dangerous. I don't know what would happen. It could also, the building fall down. He said, no, we will stay. It's not a problem. We will manage. So people, the connection that the Palestinians have with their land is something, it's undoubted this. You cannot, and also we cannot describe. We have this strong connection. I remember when I was talking to my mother on the possibility that I will try to evacuate her, the first thing that she said, that in case it will happen, I will sign that I want to return, that they will not prevent me from returning back to Gaza when I want to go. And I was like, Mama, you are really thinking about this now? You should just think that you want to survive. She said, okay, but I also want to go back when everything is calm and when it is more livable. So yeah, the people, they have this strong connection. Who can live without his country and without his land forever? Who can do this? But of course, people, they will always prioritize their safety. Also, people, they want to live. We, the Palestinians, we love the life. We love and we give a big value to life more than any other nations. We have a strong connection also to life. If we didn't, you will not see us like this. You will not see that we are all, I mean, a few days ago I was talking to one of my friends that despite the occupation, despite the blockade, and all the challenges that we went through in Gaza, we were always studying, we were continuing education, even we know that maybe we will not get a job, maybe we will be killed in one of the Israeli aggression. But we have this connection that, okay, let's live, let's enjoy the life, let's do everything, and we will not think about that. We have this energy all the time. You will never find this. It's very rare to find this. I know many, for example, today is the World Humanitarian Day. And I was talking to one of my ex-colleagues. He sent to me one of the photos of our work when I was still in Gaza. And I was crying in the morning. And I replied to him that we were really working hard. We did everything to build our Gaza all the time, because all the time Israel was destroying and we were always rebuilding it. We don't deserve this. We really don't deserve. I cannot see that we really deserve this. I don't know. I hope that the world will understand this. I hope.
Thank you. Shukran. Maja, Slovenia has had or has a history of humanitarian actions. We especially saw this in the case of Gaza after Cast-led in 2008-2009, when there was the initiative of bringing children who were injured during that war that Israel waged on Gaza to Slovenia to help with rehabilitation. It was done on the initiative of our former president, Danilo Turk, and there were groups of children coming. There were also certain trainings for professionals in Gaza to somehow continue and do the rehabilitation work also there to help build somehow the knowledge and the society. Since 7th October 2023, we've seen only one such case of evacuation in Slovenia, and there was a question, or it was never really cleared, something that Spain has done now very clearly when it evacuated a group of also injured people, that when coming to Spain for this health care or emergency support, that they will also be granted asylum. In Slovenia, this was not so clear, and we see a lot of problems, whether it's financial or whether it's very technical in the sense of people having to give their fingerprints before they can be granted visa to come to Slovenia, or for Slovenia to act so that they're evacuated from Gaza. And I'm wondering, having experience, having researched the system that exists in Slovenia, where do you see are the main somehow obstacles or barriers when it comes to somehow being a host that doesn't just take and push back, but actually opens the doors and then follows through, and also enables family reunification studies for people who get the chance or who, as Budour mentioned, somehow get through the system or very clear conditions that are set.
Thank you for this question. I have to first say that after listening to Budour and Wafa, and of course all of their experience and their family's experience, I feel it's really difficult to say anything appropriate. But I will try to collect my thoughts and speak about, like Budour said at the beginning, Slovenia has been, and this was also, I think, emphasized several times by Francesca Albanese when she was here, that Slovenia does seem to stand out amongst many other European countries. It did acknowledge Palestine. It seems to be one of the more vocal states, let's say. But yes, now it's definitely time for more action and not just talking. It's really difficult to comment on your question, because my simple answer would be, if there is political will, then there is a way, and there always must be a way. So my guess is that all we need is a really strong political will right now. And I will say that our government has to also acknowledge now that soon there will be elections and that the voters, the potential voters also of this government for re-election are observing the government and its actions. So now it's definitely time for them to show on which side, you know, they are or they want to be of the history. Safe pathways are possible. Safe pathways do exist. There are several programs already. Also, Slovenia has experience, some experience from which we could learn and create new safe and legal pathways. The important thing here to emphasize is that these complementary pathways really have to be complementary and not replace the previous existing, let's say, relocation, resettlement schemes that we've already had. But we are talking about additional safe legal pathways for people who need international protections, who live in crisis or war zones or in the middle of the genocide, will even have an opportunity to save their lives and come to Slovenia, not by a dangerous, irregular, and very expensive way. When we did the research this was done in 2021, 2-3, let's say, so a few years ago, we did a lot of interviews and focus groups with various stakeholders, including refugees, including family members of the refugees, including the organizations or groups that assist daily people who then go through the integration process in Slovenia and have numerous issues, obstacles, problems. And of course also the state representatives. And somehow it turned out that there still are so many problems with administrative procedures, with very rigid rules that Slovenia has. One you already mentioned, something like where does the person have to give fingerprints? I mean, do we really, in a time when we are observing a genocide, talking about where somebody should give fingerprints? I mean, these are really technical details. So I could go on and on about all the obstacles and problems that people are facing, but if there is a political will, there definitely is a way. I mean, now in the case of Gaza, people cannot go anywhere, so I think the only solution right now is to organize evacuations for, at least for the family members of people who already live here. I would call for Slovenian government to make the first step. I mean, I know we cannot save everybody who lives in Gaza, but let's do the first little step and let's evacuate the family members of people who are already here. These are not large numbers of people. And this would actually be just an extension of the system that we already have in place. This is nothing new. No new legal basis needed for this. We already have family reunification as a system. This would only mean the extension of expanding the family members or the relatives, not only being limited to the nuclear family, to the immediate family members. That's all. I mean, it is doable, and I would just propose for all of us to keep calling our government to do this as the first step. And then, of course, there are many other things that can be done, many other ways. There are complementary pathways linked to, like they were mentioning already, health programs, or study programs, or, I don't know, work-related programs. But I would say let's start with this really first and basic one, family members.
And just to be a little bit technical, there is an issue it seems at the moment, of some kind of financial discrimination. So it demands quite quite a large sum of money that people must somehow collect or put on a certain account, that the state decides that what we like, or what many politicians like to call, that people won't be a burden. And at the same time, when family members come to Slovenia, the problem is of their status and their rights, because the status of the people with the residency permit or citizenship here, those rights don't extend to family members. Is this something that's difficult to change, or to find ways to make exceptions and to make sure that people who come here, who are perhaps reunified with their family members, that they get a chance to actually get work, apply for universities, so become full members of society? Or are these obstacles that our system has there so rigidly in place that we can't somehow put them away?
I mean, laws are there to be amended and changed or cancelled, or new laws can be adopted. So again, I would say that cannot be, the reason. It is true that also this family that was evacuated from Gaza in end of May, their situation is also not ideal, of course, when it comes to their life in Slovenia and the integration. But then, of course, they now live in a safe place. So I guess this is such a priority that I don't think the most important thing now would be to criticize on the basis of which ground they got the residency permit. But yes, definitely not ideal for them. I think it should be no doubt that if people were evacuated from Gaza, aren't they refugees? Aren't they running from not only war but genocide? Don't they have a right to international protection? And this is a status that I think should be given to them. International protection, they should get refugee status and nothing less than that. And this is also the status that gives them the largest, let's say, palette of rights, because on the grounds on which they got only the temporary residency permit for 1 year, that does not guarantee them, a long-term safety here. Because it could happen after a year that their residency permit, for some reason, will not be prolonged. They also do not have free access to labor market or free education for older children than the primary school children. So definitely they will have several issues with integration and establishing life in Slovenia. And as far as I know, they also don't have any other family members, so they don't have the network, an existing network. But in the case of those family members of people who already live here, for example, like Wafa, I'm sure they would, support their family members in any possible way to make their lives easier and not to make them a burden to the state. But I hate this argument, really. This is so often that we hear this, then people are a burden to the state. So are many other people, so are many Slovenians. So what?
Yes, we are also a burden, for sure, for everyone, yes. Budour, you had experience of evacuation from Gaza to Norway and perhaps... Okay, but for you, looking at things or conditions or what has to be done, what do you feel is important to keep in mind in a way, or where do you see good examples, for example?
So just to make it clear that the Amnesty does not work on the issues of evacuations. So we're obviously an organization that works mainly on documenting human rights violations, on investigating human rights violations, on trying to explain what the situation that goes on. There are really limited cases where we, for example, if someone wants to apply for asylum, we can support with documents, especially if that person is at risk. We can provide, if they have a court case, we can provide some of the documents that can help that person in their attempt to get out. But we as Amnesty don't work on this. However, there is also the bare minimum of humanity that we as individuals who work at human rights, because we receive daily hundreds of messages of people asking, I want to get my family out. And of course we are very clear, we say unfortunately, and it breaks our heart every time, there is nothing that we can do about it. I think in terms of what needs to be done is, yes, it's not easy to get people out of Gaza when there is so much, because it's bureaucratically challenging, it's technically challenging, there are safety issues. And this is exactly where I go back to Wafa's original point. We know that the most urgent, most immediate, most significant, the one priority that cannot be delayed, it's unpostponable priority, is to end this madness, to end this genocide. This has to end. That should be, and every country should do everything in their power to put pressure on Israel to end that. And we acknowledge that Slovenia, out of all the countries, especially European countries that brag and say that we've done for Palestine, we've campaigned, that Slovenia has done two of the most important measures, practical measures, stop arming and stop the arms trade with Israel, and stop the trade with the settlements. And these are really, really important measures. But clearly Slovenia alone cannot and does not have the clout to end the genocide, and this has to be an EU position. And obviously the main ally, the main power that continues to arm Israel is the United States, and there is, with the current administration, even before the current administration, even the previous administration was not really interested in ending this genocide. It continued to abet and support this genocide. Now the question is, until this genocide ends, it's the same if there is a prisoner who is being tortured and denied medical treatment inside prison. We can say, okay, out of principle, I will not agree to do anything about this prisoner. He should be freed, but I will do nothing else, because as if my agreement to help this person in prison would be almost a betrayal or to that person, because I would kind of acknowledge the right of the jailer to torture him. But there are things that can be done to this tortured person, is at least save lives. And then, of course, there are ways where Slovenia, even as an under-resourced country, can ally with other European countries that work on the issue of evacuation to share the bureaucratic burden, at least of getting people out of Gaza. Now, and do the technical thing. Now, in terms of burden, yes, I think we're talking about such an exceptional situation. We're talking about a situation of genocide. And we know, and we always have to, it's a challenging issue to talk about, because for me personally, as Budour, and for so many others, we always had this battle to fight, that we should not be differentiating people into, or classifying people into, quote-unquote, good and bad refugees, or economic and political refugees, because my ideal way, the ideal world I dream of, and maybe many of us dream of, is a borderless world where nationalities are just as such imagined constructs. And Wafa stressed that, and I cannot stress that enough. And it hurts me that we are in a position as Palestinians to keep saying how much we are infatuated with life, really. And I think it's because we have seen so much death that we appreciate, there is a poem, and I was just thinking of it, by a Palestinian communist poet called Tawfiq Zayad. He said, I would give half of my life for he who makes a weeping child laugh. And this is how much we love life, and this is how everybody, because when people, for example, tell us what pains them most, And the one word is hearing my weeping child tell me I want to eat and I cannot feed them. This is what parents keep telling us, the guilt that they feel, the shame that they feel about it, not being able to deal with the starvation. Why people continue to accept displacement over and over and over again? Because they want to save their children. You have almost 2 million people doing everything humanly possible to just save their children, to do anything that they can do in order to save these children. And there should be no priority more sacred than that. And then when you at least say, okay, I will not, there are things, and even under-resourced, even limited countries, there are countries in poorer positions than Slovenia that were able to do some stuff, that were able to help, especially those with families, those residing in Slovenia with families in Gaza. Again, we cannot stress that enough. We cannot be, you imagine, and there are actually so many cases where people were killed just days before their evacuation. And even when you think about it, because everything in Gaza is by chance. Life, it's serendipity rules everything. Basically, it's just you're lucky to live just because so many people, and the stories that we hear, people who are killed while trying to buy meager amounts of food because so little is available. People are killed just because they happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. There are always people who will tell us that they were seconds away from that they were lucky that the bomb just fell not near enough. People can get killed when they go to the hospital, when they pray in a church, when they go to the playground, when they are playing table football in the street, when they are buying sweets, when they are queuing for bread, if there is any bread available. When they want to go buy diapers, whatever diapers is available at the exorbitant prices, if they are available at all. There are endless ways to get killed. And it's so chance. And to think, to me, and I'm sorry I'm using this dramatic word, but just the thought of you being able to save a person's life, and for whatever reasons, bureaucratic, technical, stupid, and I'm sorry, I have to say, these are just for me, bureaucracy and technical things, when it comes to human life, it should take the back seat. But the idea of a family getting killed just because, I don't know, for its stupid bureaucratic reasons that we don't have, that they should take wherever their fingerprints in, it just to think that kills me, honestly. And I would think that any moral, ethical official in any government, and I know people who work in government sometimes tell us, we cannot think about individuals, we have to think about big story, we cannot think about the micro, because this is not how policies are charted. But policies have to see human beings. A policy cannot not see human beings. Because behind every policy, there are human beings who are damaged by these policies. I'm sorry, but you cannot freaking talk about fingerprints when there is a family enduring genocide, and there is all the right criteria to get that family out. This family has family in Slovenia. They have loved ones. They have people who say, we can do everything to help our mother, our father. And we're not many, and you can get them out. And you say, and this family, and you know that this family can be killed at any moment. And when do you wait to, again, just thinking of the number of people who were killed, waiting for their turn for evacuation, just because some official said, oh, we don't have the good bureaucratic way to arrange the evacuation. I'm sorry, but this is nonsense. We cannot accept that. We cannot, because this family could be yours, this family could be mine. If your family was at risk, you would turn the world upside down to get that family out. You would do anything humanly possible. And the idea that we always have to be respectable and polite and wait, there are things that can, I'm sorry, but in Gaza, we don't have the luxury of waiting. Just as we speak, I'm sure Wafa would at any moment keep checking her phone, waiting. If she rings 3 times, if she sends a WhatsApp message and she doesn't see the line that the message is delivered to her family, she wouldn't even be able to have a sip of water. Like people in Gaza, people with family ones, loved ones in Gaza, their life is governed by the number of texts they see on their WhatsApp messages, just to make sure they would make expensive international calls when their families stop responding. The horror, the panic, the fear, if your parent, mother doesn't respond to your call at the right time. Would call everyone in Gaza to just know. You would start scouring the fear that one day you may wake up and see your mother's name, your sister's name, your brother's name in the names of endless lists being killed. And this happened to so many families. So we have the chance to do something about it. There are cases when we don't have anything to do, when we feel like we're helpless. We cannot, unfortunately, as regular citizens, we cannot end the genocide. One government will not be, and I know that the Slovenian government alone cannot end the genocide. It can do all that it can to hold Israel accountable, to work with other countries to end it. It cannot end the genocide on its own, of course. But it can do the very minimum sensible thing. You have your residents, your citizens, people who have worked in this country, people who love Slovenia, people who have done everything for this country, people who appreciate the fact that this country has opened its arms for them. They are calling on this country, so please let our families live. You cannot not hear those people. You have to. Nothing is more important than that. Absolutely nothing is more important than that. And we have to be angry. Like this, the fact that I have next to me a person who has been fighting for 1 year and a half to get her family out of the genocide, and one of the countries that has most done to advance and to respect the Palestinian cause seems to prioritize other concerns, which are totally, in my opinion, minor concerns, over this sacred priority. I just can't tolerate that. None of us sitting here, should accept this. So yes, I mean, whatever happens, we have to keep that. Policies have to acknowledge the humanity of people. Policies cannot be neutral to the humanity, to the bare minimum of humanity of the people whom these policies are supposed to protect.
Thank you, Budour. I feel it's almost shame to say anything more because your message is so strong and I think so right, so maybe it should be just repeated again and again. But you mentioned Slovenia, and I think we've mentioned it now a few times, and how, you know, the arms embargo that we have seen, I think, in the last 2 weeks or so. However, we have also seen articles in Slovenian newspapers and in Israeli newspapers that are saying, well, you know, Slovenia is still buying Israeli arms through their companies that they co-founded, for example, in Germany, or we saw a transfer or a transit of arms happening because it was announced before the government somehow confirmed the embargo. So it seems that very often there are many ways how to interpret, and what you mentioned before, Maja, the political will. So the political will offers the interpretation and then offers also the reality on the ground. And although sometimes it sounds really nice and we can be super proud that we come from Slovenia that stands for human rights and international law, we can't be so sure. We still haven't joined the lawsuit of South Africa, for example. Slovenia has not been clear on calling for Israel's suspension from the UN. That is a possibility because of the systemic violations of human rights and international law. And I'm wondering, for you personally, what does this somehow duality of messages mean? And where do what we have been talking today about, so possibility for safety, possibility for international protection, for asylum, I mean, is this where the masks fall off, where racism is shown, where double standards come to 4. So how to interpret what we're seeing, what we're hearing, and yes, what would real solidarity in what Budour has also described as, saving life and not using bureaucracy as an excuse, what would it mean?
I think the racism here could not be more obvious, because if we look at the responses of Slovenian politicians, Slovenian government, and the whole EU, for example, and the sanctions, right, towards Russia. That was one story. The acceptance of refugees from Ukraine was one story. Now, when we are talking about Israel, the states, including Slovenian one, just seem to allow Israel to do whatever they want. And when it comes to refugees from Palestine or Gaza, yes, we are talking about all the obstacles and bureaucratic procedures and conditions that they need to fill before our state would either grant them residency permit or any other status. So I think the racism here could not be more obvious. And that's probably exactly what it is. I think it all comes down to this.
Wafa, however, you mentioned when you worked in Gaza still, you met also doctors who have what it's called roots in Slovenia. I think Tom Potokar was one of them. Their solidarity, we know of the incredible somehow efforts and successes that people in Gaza, the society in Gaza, what they have achieved despite the blockade. And they have had solidarity from also international community. We see also now attempts of flotillas, although we still don't see flotillas that would hold or carry national flags. It's still the individuals, the people who are breaking somehow the siege, the blockade. Unfortunately, we don't hear much from Slovenian doctors and medical professionals, but examples are of solidarity, and I'm wondering, what was that like in Gaza? What did solidarity mean? How did you live it and experience it?
Yeah, for us in Gaza, solidarity, it's something more than words for us, because when it comes to occupation, to this small area that has been under the blockade for a long time and has been under several Israeli aggression before this current genocide, words are not enough. So we were always appreciating the practical solidarity. And the example that you mentioned for the doctors was one of the most powerful ones, because we have been for a long time receiving expats, receiving professors, receiving surgeons to come into Gaza, because with the fact of the blockade, we were unable always to send the junior doctors or surgeons or whatever kind of profession outside to get their training, to upgrade their skills and so on. And at the same time, the referral of the patients with complicated cases was also an issue because of the blockade and the Israeli occupation. And I believe that Budour has thousands of stories about the referral of patients from Gaza. And I also have, because I have been working on programs like this. So this was also another story for being unable to refer the patients to receive the treatment outside Gaza. So the only solution was to bring the people, the skilled people from outside. So we were always really impressed with so many people who were willing to come always, all the time, voluntarily, to come, first of all, to train the juniors, the Palestinian juniors in Gaza, in the hospitals, because I was working in the medical sector, so I will talk about this kind of professions. They were always training them, and at the same time, they were always bringing the surgical instrument with them. And so they were doing the complicated surgeries that we cannot do outside in Gaza without them. And by this way, we were able to save thousands of people in Gaza during that time. And I was impressed when I saw many of them. They were coming even during the genocide. When I found them on social media talking about, and on their accounts or even on the news, I was really impressed because I met so many of them personally. And I remember, for example, Tom Potokar. I remember him when he came the first time. It was the Great March of Return in Gaza. It was his first time. And when it started that day, there was massive injured people and killed Palestinians by the Israeli snipers. And then he decided to stay, even he should leave Gaza. At that day, he said, no, I would like to stay and to go to the emergency room. I want to support the Palestinian doctors in the hospitals. Those kind of people, they are showing solidarity in practice because words are not doing anything. Okay, I would appreciate also people who are supporting by words, but sorry, you can do something. Everyone can do something. And because you mentioned the doctors here in Slovenia, I didn't really hear anything from the doctors in Slovenia. I even didn't hear any statement, for example, about showing any solidarity about the medical staff in Gaza that they have been killed during the genocide, for example. We have, I don't know the exact figure, but we have a lot of them. We have hundreds of Palestinian medical staff who have been killed, have been injured, have been also tortured. So we have so many of them. We didn't, for me, I didn't hear any statement from the doctors here in Slovenia about their colleagues. Those are their colleagues at the end. So solidarity for us in Gaza, it means practice, to do something, to take an action, because this can change. This can make the change. But just saying, yeah, I do support you, but I cannot do anything. No, you can do. Everyone can do something. Everyone on this planet can do something. You cannot say, no, I cannot do that. No, you can do. Even your words, they can be an action if they will be targeting the right target group and the right audience, and you will state in the right time and the right place and so on. They will also make a change.
I just wanted to add that there are many things that Slovenia can do. In addition to what I was mentioning before, saving and evacuating as soon as possible the family members. But for example, there have been other experiences from which our government can, learn lessons and think of how to act now. We've had repatriation from Venezuela since 2019, I think. We've had evacuation from Afghanistan. There was this one evacuation now from Gaza recently. I mean, it's not like there has been nothing done yet and we need to think from scratch now how to do it. Also, this year, I think the first 2 refugee students came through this additional complementary safe pathway linked to education. So UNHCR is also working on this, on arranging refugees the scholarships to come study at Slovenian universities. And there is a lot more room here. So I think students from Gaza should be one of the first ones to be included in such programs. So I just wanted to say this reminder that things have already been done, things are being done also right now, so let's just expand them and let's just show the political will of right now saving people from the crisis from Gaza.
And maybe here it's worth mentioning that there was a short statement from the medical chamber when Kamal Adwan hospital got raided, and when Yes. Abu Safia was abducted by Israelis. He's still in prison. There is still a petition out. Most of you probably have it on your chairs. That's something, an action that can be done because the pressure does matter and is important, as was mentioned. But yes, so the statement hasn't been followed by any actions, and there was just, I think, 1 or 2 people raising their voices as retired or doctors themselves who feel almost ashamed that not more is being said and done. And at this point, I would actually ask the audience and you if you have perhaps any questions, comments, views that you would like to share with us. Yes, there will be a microphone that will be brought to you.
Hello everyone, I'm Mohammed Al-Warai, Palestinian who live in Slovenia for almost 6 years. I have a family in Gaza and I applied for them more than 1 year and 6 months and I didn't get any answer now. Time is blood. I lost my father during this genocide and I'm waiting for this. I have disabled brother with Down syndrome, 2 brothers 10 and 12, and 2 sisters, 18 and 20. And they are suffering literally every day to provide food, to provide water, to anything. They eat every 3 days. Last video call I did with them, I didn't recognize them. I checked the number again. Maybe I called someone else. I didn't recognize my brothers and sisters. Until when the Slovenian government, they should react. At least they tell me yes or no or whatever. But to be silent and no one has power to convince them to say yes or no, this is really stressful. And I don't know what to do in this situation. Even if as much as I can, I send money and everything, but it's useless in this situation for the basics just to survive. And I hope they will take action or to do something to give us answer, at least to say no. At least we will not hold this hope and to try to find a plan B or something. But to be quiet, and by the law, this is against the law. The longest period, they should give us answer after 6 months. And now, I don't know what to do in this situation. I hope they will give me answer as soon as possible. Thank you.
Maybe any comments? Yeah.
To say, this is torture, by the way. Like anyone with families who is waiting and who's trying, who has, because in Gaza, people with families outside Gaza, people who are in Gaza view these families as their only lifeline. And people who are inside, I don't know how to explain it to you, but it's almost, you have, what's the time right now? It's 7. The clock in Gaza works differently. They don't measure it by time, just like we do. They measure it by the number of times that they just barely survived a bombing. They measure it by the number of days they have been without flour. They measure it by the number of times they were displaced. They measure it by the number of days they've been waiting to secure medicine for their ill and sick kids, and they haven't, by the number of infectious diseases that their children are suffering. The measure of time is different. And the time does not move. Time has frozen. And for so many people, like time almost has frozen on 7 October 2023. Kids have not been going to school for 2 years. Our friend mentioned the issue of Down syndrome. You know that there have been numerous cases of people with Down syndrome being shot by the Israeli military, because, even while crossing through from north to south, because somehow the Israeli military treated them as dangerous, either because they couldn't heed a call, or because they were suspicious, or because they didn't know that this area is a buffer zone or is a military, so no go, and they went there. People with intellectual disabilities, with mental disabilities, with physical disabilities, have been so impacted by the genocide in ways that cannot be described. Deaf people who cannot know if there is bombing or not because they cannot hear. People with cognitive or intellectual disabilities who get lost and they don't, and we're talking about children aged 14, 15 who may be killed. So just the thought of someone appealing the country to get his Down syndrome brother out and other family members and not knowing, and this idea of you live clinging to this hope. And hope itself can be torture, to the point that, okay, if you want to sentence us to death, just say it, so say that, so we don't hope, or we at least try to look for other options. But this limbo that people are forced to go through, and the dry, cold answers, we're working on that case. It's fine, we're trying our best. And I'm sure, I'm sure the officers who've been in touch with our friend and the officials, they are genuinely want to help as human beings, but they keep being blocked by whatever restrictions there are. But again, these restrictions, the Israeli bomb that may shred families to pieces, know nothing about these restrictions. So the idea that you are your whole life as someone outside, who is not safe, by the way, sometimes it's funny, but people in Gaza, actually sometimes they tell us, oh, no worries, Tiglagush, it's all fine, we're good. Like, they are the ones who tell us don't worry, because sometimes they recognize that for people outside, it can be even more difficult to try to manage everything, all, by the way, while having to live your own life and make ends meet in a country that is not yours and with different language. So it's, how long? So yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And I hope that for our friends' sake, for Wafa's sake, for the sake of those with families in Gaza, that there is a solution that encompasses others, and that the issue would no longer just be waiting, that the evacuations, the fact that they managed to do one is clear indication that this can be done. If the case is done once, then that definitely can be done again. There is absolutely zero justification for this, why this cannot be done. And this can be done over several batches, several weeks, to get out everyone with families. Countries, even Germany, with all its racist package, has been doing that. So yes, these are the cases that, and the individuals that illustrate why this issue absolutely cannot wait. Wafa, if you want to say something.
Yeah, because you were mentioning that how people of Gaza, they will always say, don't worry. Of course, I am in touch with my family every day, and they are always like, Wafa, don't worry, take care of yourself. And the first thing when I ever talk to my mother, for example, how are your children in school? How are their grades in school? That they will do well. And if I will mention, for example, anything, why you didn't do this, why you didn't, and they are really very caring about my life here, because at the end I'm a migrant. I'm still new in Slovenia, because I don't consider the last 2 years like something that I live at all. And they are also very worried about me. I remember my youngest brother 2 months ago, we were chatting, and then he wrote to me, Wafa Habibti, in Arabic it means my sweetheart. Wafa Habibti, take care of yourself, enjoy your life, and forget about us. Take a breath, go for a holiday, take the kids to the beach, and so on. And I remember that moment I was crying like crazy. I was at work, and I was really crying like crazy, because my brother, who is enduring a genocide, and I know what he is going through, he is also worried about me here, and he wants me just to take a breath and to take care of my children. So this can tell you that we are normal human beings. We have feelings. We do care about each other. And as Budour said, every minute it means that you are saving a life, because according to UNICEF, for example, every hour we have a child killed in Gaza. And it could be my niece or nephew. It could be any other child. So yeah, the time is blood. And whenever I talk to someone, okay, I will ask maybe after holiday, I will look about this and I will be like, how I can tell people that I am talking about saving the life of my family. I'm not talking like that I want your help to write an email, or I want your help to advise for something. I'm talking about saving lives. This is not, it's not a thing that you can really wait, and you have to think about it. It's no doubt, we have to say, because according to the humanitarian law, according to all the laws in the world, according to us as humans, the first priority is the protection of people, to save the lives of people. So why should be this a question? Why should be this a debate? Should we do this or we shouldn't? Of course we should. So what's the other option? Okay, leave them and they will be killed and so on. This is it. So it's too painful, this, because it's like dehumanization of the Palestinians, and feeling this is really too bad, because I'm pretty sure if it is another nationality, for example, and will not mention, it will not be the same. It will not be the same. The world will not be watching for 2 years a literal genocide against people, against children. It's against children. When was the last time that 20,000 children have been killed in 2 years? And others will be also, either from sickness or diseases because of the starvation and, of course, the results of starvation and the limited access to the healthcare and so on. When this happened, and we are still have to talk and to convince the world we are the victims and we should be saved, we are seeking protection and so on. Why? Why we should go through all of this? And what did we do even to deserve all of this?
Any more questions, comments, thoughts? Yes.
I would like to ask about these complementary pathways. Like, probably, I assume this is the question for Amnesty International, because the procedure is so complicated and made virtually impossible. Is there anything concrete that Amnesty International or anybody else can do to further pressure the government to change this? I mean, like, is there a petition or something like that for this complementary way? Or will there be any further action? I know that Amnesty International has already called the government to implement those complementary pathways to make evacuation possible, like you've explained. But, like, are there more concrete measures that will be taken from organizations like this, or what can be done concretely further more than this? Thank you.
Kristina, maybe you are better placed to answer this. Actually, there is a petition being prepared and coordinated by different NGOs, collectives, and we hope to launch it very soon. At the moment, it's, I think, in the final moments of somehow coordinating, and then, yes, hopefully we can spread it and get as many signatures of organizations, but also then individuals under it, so that it is also very clear to the government, to the officials, that something must be done and must be done very fast or very soon. So yes, we are working on this. I think the calls for these supplementary pathways have been heard before, have been presented by PITS, the Campaign for the Rights of the Palestinians. We've heard it also from the Special Rapporteur, Francesca Albanese, and for sure Amnesty International on the International Day of refugees and migrants also emphasized the examples of different initiatives where there was sponsorship. Also, the office in Britain decided to sponsor one such individual to offer safety in the world that we live in. And I think at the moment when we're looking at genocide, we all have to raise our voices that something must be done. So I hope that in the next days there will also be a petition out for everybody to sign and to add their voice. Any more maybe questions or comments?
There is not something else we can do than just a petition in 2025, like it's like 2 years.
Maybe you can just repeat it in the...
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, there is not something else to do in 2025 than a petition. Like, I don't know, a petition just sounds very silly for me now and very useless.
Maybe answers from some of you.
Yeah, I'll tell you, yeah, it's also probably a demonstration of how we have failed collectively. We have failed to, we have not been up to the task, and we should admit it. Like we people who speak of international law, of human rights, by we, I also mean we Palestinians who are not from Gaza. I'll tell you, I just want, please, I know, but I'm speaking as individually, as myself. Every day I feel like I have failed as a human being, honestly. The feeling that somehow this continues and we have not been able to stop this. And we know the reasons why this, but it's to have this being done over and over again. You cannot deal with what your conscience, what your, like the very fact, even being here, like we talk of guilt, we try not to make guilt the feeling that disables us or prevents us from working. But like we live with this guilt every single moment. Like just having been able just to talk, even thinking of all how privileged we are, Palestinians outside Gaza are relatively, and how privileged I am and how privileged many of us are. When I talk to my colleague in Gaza, when he tells me that he's hungry, and when we try to turn to just, to make contacts and just to, will we able to find some food, and just if you manage to help someone and then they will start thanking you and you're like, please don't thank me, please just don't. It's like the very least we can do. But it's actually, especially because I work in human rights, I feel like, the human rights language has failed. What the human rights language can offer, statements, petitions, urgent actions, even vigils, sit-ins, that's not enough. Maybe there needs, definitely there needs to be more direct action. More things I cannot, as Amnesty, I have two hats, my hat as a Budour and my hat as Amnesty International. But as wearing my hat as myself, who often feels that there is a title of a movie by Ilyas Liman called Alam Laysa Lana, a word not ours. And I feel like, no, this human rights world is not for us. Maybe it serves other people, it just has failed to serve us. Or the way it has been implemented has not means that we, as Palestinians, don't have room in this world. Maybe that world is designed for people who look prettier than us, who, I don't know, have lighter skins than ours, have different color of eyes than ours, but not for us. And then what? So yes, I totally agree with you. Statements, research papers, press releases, they are not going to end the genocide. and they're not enough. And this is why also I think that the way we should collectively think, okay, what should we do more? And it starts with people who think, yeah, there are ways, stronger ways to pressure, to just keep the pressure on. Anyone else?
Any more comments? Okay. Maybe I would like to, at this point, read a few words, and also, if there are no more questions, we can then go to the more informal way of talking and sharing experiences and thoughts and ideas. I think we are seeing a lot of mobilization, and there are things to be done by every person wherever they feel comfortable. I think every action in a way matters. It can matter in the sense that this continues, yeah, or that even genocide is being supported. We still have products in Slovenian stores coming from Israel, and very likely coming from the occupied West Bank. We still have shops, or that are not ashamed of that. And we still have government that could do more. We all feel that, and is not doing more. We still have, I think, many venues where we can emphasize and give space to Palestinian voices, whether it's poetry, whether it's their, I don't know, paintings, work, expressions, analysis. I think it's incredible that it is usually the experience and analysis by the Palestinians that's the most profound, and they know very well what's happening to them. And often I think media or journalists wait then for bigger organizations or, I don't know, Western professionals or lawyers to somehow adopt the same analysis, the same words as Palestinians have been using for decades, and then we sometimes somehow take it seriously. So I think just giving space to Palestinian voices, to their stories, and yeah, doing whatever we feel comfortable with. There is a lot of initiatives, global initiatives, that are happening. We see flotillas being prepared. We see actions, calls for global strikes, for global solidarity movements. We can all agree that it's not enough, that it's, something more should be done. But at the same time, I think no one person is going to change everything. It's also, I think, very superficial and in a way very that we think too much of ourselves if we think that we can change something that people have been fighting and resisting for decades. I think this is worth acknowledging, the fight that Palestinians and the Sumud, the resistance that they have shown since 48 or even longer, since the beginning of the 20th century. And we can only, I think, humbly use that as a guide for us to also show solidarity, do it in practice in any way that we can in our workplaces, at our homes, or and there are actions, I think, still going to happen. So keep your eyes open. There are going to be events, I think, also at Grounded that are going to deal with the question of accountability that we haven't so much touched upon, but is very also important, I think, in Slovenia, where we have the universal jurisdiction, and things could move forward, especially since we also have an Israeli airline that 3 times a week flies in probably Israeli tourists that have most likely served as soldiers on the occupied territories and kept the occupation going, that the International Court of Justice declared illegal as a violation of international law and human rights, and as a war crime in this regard, so something that should be prosecuted. And, I think also something that has been done in a symbolic way just last week was the cultural somehow breaking of the siege by the group or the collective that creates the festival Floating Castle, and that also tries to keep working. They brought us the story of Sarah, who was killed by a bomb while she was more or less practicing to somehow join the choir, singing through the internet, through the connection that symbolically broke the blockade and brought Gaza to Snežnik Castle. And one of the artists and creators that also contributed and was part of this initiative was Samar Albana. And she wrote not many days ago, "I'm not searching for grand words, and I don't like saying goodbye. But there's a story in my heart, heavy, walking with me every day. I come from a land that's torn down every night and rises every morning with a cup of tea, a prayer, or a child's laughter, despite everything. I come from a place that doesn't look like the news, a place screens will never understand. But I'm here, resisting in my own way, with my art, with my silence sometimes, and with my belief that everything, even the impossible, can still change. Don't ask me to be strong all the time, but let me say this: I will not break, I will not forget, and I will not give up. If I could ask one thing of you, don't just be spectators. Be a voice, be action, be with us in any way, in any language. Gaza doesn't need pity. It needs life." Maja, Wafa, Budour, thank you very much for tonight's evening. Thank you all who were with us. Let's continue this conversation going. And yes, let's keep the voices strong and proud. And as Palestinians say, sumut. Thank you.